Nobody remembered who built the lower corridors of Drifthold. The space station had been floating at the edge of the Pullev cluster for so long that even the oldest engineers had stopped asking questions about the sealed doors beneath Level 9. Some said they were storage. Others said they were tombs. Most people just avoided them. Runa had lived her entire 16 years on Drifthold and had never once gone below Level 7. She was Salvari, thin and pale-skinned, with 4 delicate fingers on each hand and silver-blue eyes that saw well in low light. The Salvari were known across the galaxy for being calm, polite, and completely unremarkable in every physical way. They made excellent diplomats and terrible soldiers. That was fine with everyone, including Runa. Her mother, Dalla, worked as a trade negotiator for the station council. She was good at her job, quiet, careful. She kept their quarters clean, their meals warm, and their lives predictable. Runa had never known her father. Dalla had told her he died in a transport accident before Runa was born. She never said much more than that, and Runa had learned not to push. The trouble started because of a water leak that a pipe had burst somewhere beneath the residential block, and the maintenance crew needed to trace the source. Runa volunteered to help because she was fast on her feet and small enough to fit through the older access tunnels. She followed the trail of dripping water down past Level 7, then Level 8, then through a cracked wall panel that had been loose for years. Behind the panel was a staircase that did not appear on any station map. She should have turned around. She knew that, but the air coming up from below smelled different. Not bad, just old, like a room that had been sealed for a very long time, holding its breath. The staircase led to a narrow corridor lined with metal walls that were darker than anything else on the station. No rust, no dust. The material looked almost alive, with faint lines running through it like veins in a leaf. At the end of the corridor was a single door. It had no handle, no keypad, no scanner. Just a flat surface with a shape pressed into the center. The shape was a handprint, but it had 5 fingers. Runa stared at it. Salvari had 4 fingers. Every species she knew on Drifthold had either 4, 3, or 6. 5 was wrong. 5 was something else. She placed her hand over the print anyway. Her 4 fingers fit inside the outline with room to spare. The 5th groove sat empty beside her smallest finger. The door opened. Inside was a room no bigger than a closet. The walls were bare. The floor was bare. In the center, mounted on a simple black stand, was a sword. It was short, maybe half a meter long, and the blade was made of metal so dark it seemed to pull light into itself. Strange writing ran along the flat of the blade in a language Runa had never seen. The handle was wrapped in something rough and cracked with age. She did not know why she reached for it. Later, she would tell herself it was curiosity. But in the moment, it felt more like the sword was asking her to pick it up, like it had been waiting. Her fingers closed around the handle. The blade lit up, deep, angry red, starting from the base and rushing to the tip like blood filling a vein. The writing on the blade burned white for a single second, then faded back. The floor vibrated. The walls hummed. Somewhere far above her, Runa heard a sound she had never heard before on Drifthold. It was a siren, but not the kind used for fires or hull breaches. This one was lower, slower, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. Every screen on the station flickered. In the control room, 6 levels up, the old warning system activated for the first time in over 1,000 years. The display showed 2 words in a language the operators could not read. The station's translation software took nearly a full minute to process it. When the words finally appeared in common galactic script, the room went silent. Warden detected. Runa stood in the vault, holding the sword, feeling heat spread through her hand and upper arm. It did not burn. It felt like something inside her was being switched on for the first time. Her heart was beating too fast. Her vision was sharper than it had ever been. She could hear footsteps running toward her from 3 levels above. The door behind her flew open. Dallas stood there, breathing hard, her silver blue eyes wide with something Runa had never seen in them before. Fear. Real, deep, old fear. Put it down, Dalla whispered. It glowed when I touched it, Runa said. Why did it glow? Dalla looked at the blade. Then at Runa's hand wrapped around the handle, and something in her expression broke. Not anger, not surprise, grief, like she had been dreading this moment for 16 years and it had finally come. "You were never supposed to find that," Dallas said quietly. "What is it?" Runa asked. Dalla closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. "It is your father's sword," she said, "and he was not Salvari." Dalla did not speak again until they were back inside their quarters with the door locked and every window panel dimmed to black. She sat on the edge of the bed with her hands folded tight in her lap. Runa stood across the room, the sword still in her hand. She had tried to put it down twice on the way up. Both times, her fingers had refused to let go. "Start talking," Runa said. Her voice was steady, but her pulse was not. Something inside her chest was still humming, like the blade had left a vibration running through her bones. Dalla took a long breath. "Your father's name was Callum Ashgrave. He was not Salvari. He was not from any species the Galactic Council currently recognizes." She paused. "He was human." The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Runa had heard it before. Everyone in the galaxy had heard it before. Humans were history. They were the species that the older races used to scare their children at night. A civilization of Deathworlders from a brutal, heavy-gravity planet who had risen too fast, fought too hard, and destroyed themselves in a catastrophic war over 1,000 years ago. The galaxy had moved on. The records had been archived. Humanity was supposed to be extinct. "That is not possible," Runa said. "It is," Dalla replied. "I met him 20 years ago at a trade outpost on the far side of the Dreambelt. He was traveling alone under a false name, working as a cargo handler. He looked almost Salvari. Close enough. 5 fingers instead of 4, slightly heavier build, but he had learned how to hide. He wore gloves. He kept quiet. Nobody looked twice." "You married a human," Runa said, still not believing the words coming out of her own mouth. "I loved da human, dalla corrected gently. And he loved me. And when you were born, he held you for 3 days straight without sleeping. He said you were the most important thing that had ever existed. Then he told me the truth about what he was, what his bloodline carried, and why we would never be safe if anyone found out." She pointed at the sword in Runa's hand. "That is a Warden blade. It is not just a weapon. It is alive in a way. It bonds to a specific bloodline through something humans called bloodline imprinting. Once bonded, it cannot be used by anyone outside the family. It stores memories, combat knowledge, and instinct from every warrior who carried it before. Your father's family, the Ashgraves, had carried that blade for over 900 years. Runa looked down at the dark metal. The red glow had faded, but the blade was warm in her grip. "Why did it react to me? I am half Salvari." "Because the human half is enough," Dallas said. "The blade reads blood. Your blood carries the Ashgrave line. It does not care about the other half. To the sword, you are family." Runa sat down slowly. Her legs felt weak, not from fear, but from something she could not name. Since touching the blade, her senses had been different. She could hear the hum of the station's power core, 4 levels below. She could see the tiny cracks in the ceiling panel that she had never noticed before. When she had walked up the stairs, her body had moved differently, smoother, faster, like it knew where to put each foot before her brain gave the order. "What is happening to me?" she asked. "The blade is waking up your human side," Dalla said carefully. Humans were classified as Class 7 Deathworlders, the highest rating in the Galactic Index. Their bodies were built for a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Heavy gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere. They developed reflexes, endurance, and physical strength that most species cannot match. And the Warden bloodlines were even more than that. They could bond with weapons at a genetic level. The weapon becomes part of them. It teaches them. It remembers for them. "Where's my father now?" Runa asked. Dalla's expression tightened. "He left when you were 4 months old." The Galactic Council had started a quiet program to track down any surviving humans or half-bloods. Someone on the station had reported unusual energy readings from our quarters. Callum knew they would come. He sealed the blade in the vault below, said to open only for someone with Ashgrave blood, and disappeared. He told me to tell you he was dead. He said it was safer. Safer for who? Runa's voice cracked. For you, Dalla whispered. He said if they found you, they would either lock you away or use you. He said the galaxy was not ready for humans again. Not yet. Runa stood up. The blade pulsed once in her hand, faintly, like a heartbeat answering hers. That siren went off. The whole station heard it. What did it say? Dalla's face went pale. It said, Warden detected. That signal is over 1,000 years old. It was built into the station's original systems long before the Salvari took control, which means the station's founders knew what a Warden was. And if the station broadcast that signal outward, she trailed off. Then the council heard it too. Runa finished, Dalla nodded. They will send someone, and they will come fast. Runa looked at the blade. She could feel it now, not just in her hand, but somewhere deeper. In her chest, in her spine. It was not controlling her. It was waiting, offering, like a door standing open. I'm not putting this down, Runa said quietly. Dalla looked at her daughter. For just a moment, she did not see the thin, quiet Salvari girl she had raised. She saw Callum, the same jaw, the same steady look in the eyes, the same stubborn refusal to step back from something that mattered. I know, Dalla said. He told me you would say that. The ship that docked at Drifthold 3 days later was sharp and black, shaped like a needle, and it carried no trade markings. It belonged to the Galactic Council's Enforcement Division, the kind of ship that arrived when someone important wanted something found, taken, or erased. The officer who stepped off the ship was Venery. His name was Superintendent Overick. He was tall for his species, with a hard exoskeleton the color of wet stone and compound eyes that never seemed to blink. The Venery were insectoid, cold-blooded, and famous across the galaxy for two things. They followed rules without question, and they feared humans more than any other species alive. Overick walked through the docking bay with 4 armed soldiers behind him. He did not greet the station administrator. He did not explain his purpose. He simply handed over a sealed council warrant and said, 3 days ago, this station broadcast a signal classified under Protocol Ash. That protocol has not been active for 1,100 years. I am here to determine the source, secure the object, and detain the individual responsible. The station administrator, a round-faced Salvari named Bren, read the warrant and went pale. Superintendent, I assure you, our engineering team believes the signal was a system malfunction. These older stations, sometimes Protocol Ash was designed to detect one thing. Overick interrupted. His voice had no warmth in it. A Warden-class weapon bonded to a living host. There is no malfunction that produces that signal. Someone on this station touched something they should not have. I intend to find them. 3 levels below, Runa sat in her quarters and felt the soldiers arrive. She did not hear them. She felt them. Since touching the blade, her awareness had stretched far beyond what any Salvari body should be capable of. She could sense vibrations in the floor from footsteps 2 corridors away. She could read the tension in a room before she entered it. Twice in the past 3 days, she had caught objects falling off shelves before they hit the ground, her hand moving so fast it surprised even her. The blade was hidden inside a wall panel behind her bed. It had gone quiet since the first night, the red glow dimming to nothing, but Runa could still feel it. A low, steady pulse, like a second heartbeat, sitting just behind her ribs. And sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she saw things, flashes, quick and vivid, like memories that did not belong to her. A battlefield under an orange sky. A line of soldiers in dark armor, holding short swords just like hers. A man running through rain with a child wrapped in his arms. A voice, deep and calm, saying words in a language she did not understand but somehow recognized. The blade was showing her the ash graves. Every hand that had held it before her. Every fight, every promise, every loss. Dalla entered the room and closed the door quickly. Council enforcers, she said. Venery, they are already searching the lower levels. I know, Runa said. I can feel them moving. Dalla stared at her. You can feel them? 5 of them. One is heavier than the others. He walks differently. The leader, I think. Runa paused. Is this what humans were like? Worse, Dalla said quietly. What you are feeling now is a fraction of it. Full-blooded humans could track a heartbeat through a wall. Their soldiers could fight for days without rest. The galaxy did not go to war with them because they wanted to. They did it because they were terrified of what would happen if they did not. Overk's search moved floor by floor. His team scanned every room, every storage unit, every maintenance shaft. They were looking for the energy signature of a bonded weapon. The blade, however, had gone dormant. It was still connected to Runa, still feeding her its ancient knowledge, but it had pulled its signal inward, as if it knew it was being hunted. The problem came on the second day of the search. Two of Overk's soldiers stopped Runa in a corridor near the market level. They were conducting random identity checks. One of them scanned her with a handheld device and frowned at the reading. Anomalous biological markers, he said to his partner. Elevated muscle density. Irregular reflex index. The second soldier stepped closer. Hold still, he said, reaching for her arm. Runa did not decide to move. Her body decided for her. She sidestepped the grab, caught the soldier's wrist, turned it gently but firmly, and pushed him back 2 steps. The second soldier raised his weapon. Runa's free hand came up, caught the barrel of the gun, and angled it toward the floor. Both soldiers were disarmed and off balance in less than 2 seconds. Neither was hurt. Runa had not even raised her voice. She stood there, breathing hard, looking at her own hands like they belonged to a stranger. I am sorry, she said. I did not mean to do that. The soldiers scrambled back and called it in. Within the hour, Overk had the report on his screen. A young Salvari female had disarmed 2 trained enforcers using hand-to-hand techniques that matched known Salvari combat training. Her movement speed exceeded the biological limits of her species by a factor of 3. Overk read the report twice. Then he pulled up the old council archives, the classified ones, the ones that described what happened when a Warden blade bonded with a new host. Enhanced reflexes, inherited combat memory, a body that adapted to threats faster than the conscious mind could follow. That he closed the file and stood. His compound eyes reflected the cold light of the screen. Find the girl, he said. That night, Runa sat alone in the dark with the blade across her knees. The red glow returned, soft and low, and the visions came again. But this time, one image stayed longer than the rest. A man with tired eyes and rough hands, holding a newborn with pale Salvari skin. He looked into the baby's face and whispered, "When you are ready, the blade will call you home." Runa pressed her forehead against the flat of the blade and felt tears she could not explain. It happened at 3 in the morning, station time, when the lights in the corridors were dimmed to their lowest setting and even the maintenance drones had gone quiet. Runa was sitting on the floor of her room with the Warden blade flat across her palms when the visions changed. Until now, the memories had come in short bursts. Quick images, half-second flashes of faces and places she did not recognize. But tonight the blade opened something deeper. The red glow spread slowly across the metal, warm but not hot, and the room around Runa disappeared. She was standing in a field. Green grass, real wind on her face, a sky that was not the inside of the station but actual open air, blue and wide and impossibly far. She had never seen a real sky before, and the size of it made her dizzy. In front of her stood a man. He was not tall, but he was solid. Broad shoulders, rough hands, a face that looked like it had been shaped by weather and work. His eyes were brown and tired and kind. He was wearing a dark coat, and on his belt hung a short black sword identical to the one in Runa's hands. "This is a recording," the man said. His voice was calm and deep. Not a ghost, not a dream. The blade stores the voice and memory of its last bonded carrier. "My name is Callum Ashgrave. I am your father. And if you're seeing this, it means the blade has chosen you." Runa tried to speak, but could not. This was the blade's memory, not hers. She could only watch and listen. "I left you when you were 4 months old," Callum continued. "That was the hardest thing I have ever done, and I have done hard things. I want you to understand why." He looked down at his hands, then back up. "The Ashgrave bloodline is part of an order called the Grey Wardens. We go back over 900 years to the last days of Earth. The Wardens were not soldiers. We were protectors. Each family carried a living blade that bonded to their blood, and each family was sworn to defend the species that could not defend themselves. He began to walk, and the field moved with him. Runa followed without choosing to. When the war came, the one that the galaxy says destroyed us, the truth was different. Humanity was not wiped out. We chose to leave. The Council had started a program to capture human bloodlines and use them as weapons. They wanted our reflexes, our endurance, our ability to bond with living metal. They wanted to breed us into an army. The Wardens refused. All of us. Every family. We took our blades and scattered to the far edges of the galaxy. We hid among other species. We changed our names. We raised children who would never know what they were. Callum stopped walking. The sky above him had turned orange, like a sunset that would never end. I hid you among the Salvari because they're the gentlest species I have ever known. Your mother is a good woman. She will raise you to be kind. The blade will teach you the rest. There are things you need to know, he said, and his voice grew more serious. The blade you are holding is one of 12. 12 Warden families. 12 living swords. When one blade bonds to a new carrier, it sends out a signal. Not a radio wave. Something deeper. Something that travels through the metal itself, across any distance. The other blades will feel it. If any of the other ash graves survived, if any of their descendants are still out there, they will know you have woken up. He paused and looked directly at her. Even though this was a memory, a recording stored in ancient metal, Runa felt like he was really seeing her. The Council will come for you. They have been hunting half-bloods for centuries. They're afraid of what we are. Not because we are dangerous, but because we cannot be controlled. A warden fights for the weak. Always. That is the oath. That is what the blade was made for. And the Council does not want protectors it cannot command. Callum reached out, as if he could touch her through the vision. His hand stopped in the air between them. You're going to have to make a choice, Runa. You can hide the blade, seal it away again, and live your life as a Salvari girl in a quiet station. No one would blame you. Or you can carry it. And if you carry it, you carry everything that comes with it. The memories, the instincts, the duty. His expression softened. I know what you will choose. You are your mother's daughter, which means you are brave. And you're my daughter, which means you're stubborn. The blade knows it too. That is why it woke up for you. The field began to fade. The green grass turned to gray. The sky dimmed. One more thing, Callum said, his voice growing distant. If they come for you, do not be afraid to stand. The blade will remember what your body has not yet learned. Trust it. Trust yourself. And know that somewhere out there, I am still carrying my fight. I never stopped. The vision broke. Runa was back in her room, on the floor, with tears running down her face and the blade glowing steady red in her hands. The warmth in her chest was not fear. It was something older, something that had been passed down through 1,000 years of hands holding this same piece of metal. Purpose. She wiped her eyes and stood up. Outside her door, she could hear boots in the corridor. Overik's soldiers were getting closer. The search had narrowed to the residential block. It was only a matter of time. Runa looked at the blade. All right, she said quietly. I'm not hiding you again. The blade pulsed once. Warm. Ready. Somewhere on the far side of the galaxy, in places the Council had forgotten to look, 7 other blades stirred in the dark. They came for her at midday, when the market corridors were full of people. Runa always wondered later if Overik had chosen the timing on purpose. A public arrest. A message. This is what happens when you activate something that should have stayed buried. Point 12 soldiers marched through the central corridor of Drifthold in a tight formation, weapons drawn. Overik walked behind them with his hands clasped behind his back and his compound eyes locked forward. The station's civilian population, hundreds of Salvari, Dren traders, and a handful of other species who called Drifthold home, stopped what they were doing and stared. Nobody had seen Council enforcers move like this on a civilian station. Not in living memory, that Overik's voice came through the station's speaker system, cold and flat. Resident Runa, daughter of Dala, is hereby classified as a Class 0 biological threat under Council Protocol Ash. She is ordered to surrender herself and the weapon in her possession immediately. Any individual who assists or shelters her will be charged with obstruction of galactic security. In the market, an old Salvari fruit seller named Pole dropped his basket. He had known Runa since she was a child. She used to steal snacks from his stall, and he used to pretend not to notice. Class Zero threat. The words did not fit anything he knew about the quiet girl with the silver blue eyes. Runa heard the announcement from 2 levels away. She was already moving. The blade was in her hand, dormant, the dark metal catching no light. She had not slept. She had spent the night sitting with the weapon, letting the memories flow through her, feeling 1,000 years of Ashgrave warriors settle into her muscles like water soaking into dry ground. She did not know every technique. She did not understand every memory. But the blade did. And the blade was ready. Dalla caught her at the stairwell. Her mother's face was white. Runa, please, give them the sword. Tell them you did not know what it was. They might believe you. You can still walk away from this. Runa looked at her mother. She loved this woman more than anything in the galaxy. But something in her chest, something old and warm and absolutely certain, would not let her hand open. If I give them the sword, they will destroy it, she said. And then they will come for the next one. And the next. Every blade. Every half-blood. Every trace of what the Wardens were. You are 16 years old, Dalla whispered. I know, Runa said. But the blade is 1,000. And right now, it is telling me to stand. She walked into the main corridor alone. The soldiers saw her coming from 50 meters away. She was thin, pale, and young. She did not look like a Class Zero threat. She looked like a schoolgirl carrying a piece of old metal. But when she stopped walking and planted her feet, something in the air changed. The soldiers felt it before they understood it. A weight, a stillness, like the gravity in the corridor had shifted slightly toward the girl standing at its center. Overick raised one arm. Stand down and surrender the weapon. Runa did not answer. She lifted the blade. The first 2 soldiers moved in fast, trained and professional, coming at her from both sides. Runa's body responded before her mind could think. She stepped left, turned the first soldier's momentum against him, guided him past her with a hand on his shoulder, and caught the second soldier's weapon arm at the wrist. She twisted gently. The gun clattered to the floor. The soldiers stumbled back, unharmed but completely off balance. Point 3 more came. Runa moved through them like water flowing around stones. She did not strike. She redirected. Every grab was turned into a stumble. Every weapon raised was pushed aside. One soldier swung a stun baton at her head. She ducked under it, placed her palm flat against his chest, and pushed. He slid back 3 meters on his feet and sat down hard, unhurt but shocked. The blade was glowing now. Soft red, steady, like a lantern in a dark room. It moved in Runa's hand as if it weighed nothing. The memories of every Ashgrave who had held it were flowing through her arms, guiding every turn, every deflection. 900 years of warriors who had sworn the same oath. Protect. Do not destroy. Stand between danger and those who cannot fight. Then the screaming started. A group of children, 6 of them, had been walking to the learning center when the soldiers advanced. They were trapped in a side corridor, pressed against the wall, crying. One of the soldiers, panicking from Runa's impossible speed, swung his weapon wide. The barrel pointed toward the children. Runa was 20 meters away. She covered the distance in less than 2 seconds. The blade came up and knocked the weapon skyward. It discharged into the ceiling. Sparks rained down. Runa stood between the soldier and the children, the sword held low, her body a wall. Do not, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire corridor. They are children. The soldier backed away. Silence fell. Every civilian in the corridor was watching. Pole, the old fruit seller, was the first to move. He stepped out from behind his overturned stall and walked slowly toward Runa. He stood beside her. Then a Dren trader named Asa did the same. Then a maintenance worker. Then a teacher. Then a mother holding her own child. One by one, the residents of Drifthold stepped into the corridor and stood behind the girl with the glowing sword. Not because she was powerful. Not because she had won a fight. Because she had held a weapon built for killing and used it to shield children she did not even know. Overk stared at the scene. His soldiers were scattered, disarmed, sitting on the floor. Not one of them was bleeding. Not one of them had a broken bone. The girl had fought 12 trained enforcers and had not injured a single one. His mandibles clicked slowly. This was not what the old files had described. The old files talked about human savagery, uncontrollable aggression, a species too dangerous to exist. This girl had not attacked anyone. He opened his communicator. Command, this is Superintendent Overk, requesting additional units to Drifthold. The situation has changed. Overk's reinforcements were 6 hours away when the first signal appeared on the Council's deep space monitoring grid. A small energy pulse, no larger than a heartbeat, from a moon colony near the Riven Expanse. The analysts noted it and moved on. Then a second signal appeared, this one from a research outpost orbiting a gas giant in the Hollow Systems. Then a third from a farming settlement so far from the core worlds that most star maps did not even bother to name it. Within 2 hours, there were 7 signals, all identical, all matching the same ancient frequency that Drifthold had broadcast when Runa first touched the blade. Protocol Ash. Warden detected 0.7 times. On Drifthold, Runa stood in the main corridor surrounded by the station civilians. Nobody had moved. The children she had shielded were sitting behind her, calmer now, watching her with wide eyes. The disarmed soldiers sat against the walls, waiting for orders that had not come. Overk stood at the far end of the corridor, very still, reading the reports coming in on his communicator with an expression that, for the first time since his arrival, looked something close to uncertainty. 0.7 blades. 7 news signals, scattered across the galaxy in places no one had thought to search for 1,000 years. The Grey Wardens were not extinct. Their bloodlines had survived, hidden among dozens of species, mixed into populations that had no idea what slept inside their veins. And now, because one girl in a backwater station had picked up her father's sword, they were all waking up. Dalla pushed through the crowd and reached Runa's side. She looked at the blade in her daughter's hand, still glowing that steady, patient red, and then at the soldiers on the floor. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I did not hurt any of them," Runa said. "I know," Dalla said. "That is not what I asked." Runa looked at her mother, and for a moment she was just a girl again. 16, scared, holding something much bigger than herself. "I do not know what happens next," she admitted, before Dalla could answer. The station shuddered. Not from impact, from a ship dropping out of hyperspace close enough to rattle the docking clamps. Every screen in the corridor flickered. The station's proximity sensors screamed. Overk spun toward the nearest display and watched as a single vessel appeared on the scanner. It was small, old, and shaped like nothing in any modern registry. Its hull was dark metal, scarred and patched, and it was broadcasting on a frequency that the station's systems had to dig through centuries of archive code to recognize, that a Warden frequency. The ship docked without asking permission. The airlock opened and a woman stepped out. She was old, not elderly, old in the way that mountains are old, where the years have worn everything down to what is essential and left nothing wasted. Her hair was white and cut short. Her skin was dark and lined. Her hands were scarred across every knuckle, and her eyes were unmistakably, undeniably human. Brown, warm, tired, alive. She was carrying a sword. It was the same length as Runa's, but the blade was white metal instead of black, and it glowed with a light so faint it looked like frost on glass. She walked through the docking bay without hurrying. The soldiers in her path stepped aside without being told. There was something about the way she moved, slow and deliberate, that made it clear she was not someone who needed to rush for anyone. Overk blocked her path. "Identify yourself," he said. His voice was steady, but his mandibles were clicking, a venery sign of deep stress. The woman looked up at him. She was a full head shorter than the insectoid officer, but somehow the height difference did not seem to matter. "My name is Greta Ashgrave," she said. "I am this girl's great-aunt, and I am the last of the original Grey Wardens." Overk's compound eyes widened. "That is not possible. The Wardens were destroyed in the war." "Yes, that is what we wanted you to believe." Greta walked past him. He did not stop her. She moved down the corridor until she reached Runa. The two of them stood face to face. Runa was taller, younger, trembling slightly. Greta looked at the black blade in the girl's hand and smiled. It was a small, sad, proud smile. "You held the line," Greta said. "Without training. Without help. You held it, and you did not draw blood. That is the Ashgrave way." "I did not know what I was doing," Runa whispered. "You knew exactly what you were doing," Greta said. "The blade showed you, and you listened." She turned to face Overick and the soldiers behind him. She did not raise her sword. She did not raise her voice. She simply stood there, a small old woman with a white blade at her side, and spoke clearly enough for everyone in the corridor to hear. "We did not hide because we were afraid of you," she said. "We hid because you were afraid of us. For 1100 years, the Grey Wardens have lived in the shadows, watching, waiting, protecting when we could, and disappearing when we had to. Your council hunted us because they could not control us. They told the galaxy we were monsters. They said humans were too dangerous to exist." She pointed at Runa. "This girl just fought 12 of your soldiers and did not leave a scratch on any of them. She stood in front of children she did not know and used a weapon built for war to keep them safe. If that is what you call dangerous, then the galaxy has forgotten what the word means." Overick said nothing. The soldiers said nothing. The corridor was completely silent. Greta lowered her hand. "You never needed to be afraid of us. You never needed to hunt us. We were always on your side. Every single one of us. From the very beginning." Overick looked at the girl. He looked at the old woman. He looked at the civilians standing behind them. Ordinary people who had chosen to stand with a half-human child carrying an ancient sword rather than step aside for the council. He lowered his weapon arm. "Stand down," he said quietly to his soldiers. Hours later, after Greta had spoken with the station council, after the soldiers had returned to their ship, after the corridors were quiet again, Runa stood at the observation window on level 3. The stars outside were the same ones she had looked at her whole life. But they felt different now. Somewhere out there, 7 other blades were glowing. 7 other people, half-bloods like her, hidden among species who had never suspected what ran through their veins, were waking up to the truth of what they were. Greta stood beside her. "There will be more," the old woman said. "The blades are calling to each other. It will take time, but they will find their way." "What do we do?" Runa asked. "What we have always done," Greta said. "We stand between the dark and the ones who cannot fight it alone." Runa held the blade against her chest. It was warm, quiet, patient. 1,000 years of warriors resting inside cold metal, waiting for the next hand to carry them forward. She pressed her forehead against the flat of the blade and whispered a single word. "Home." And somewhere, across a galaxy that had tried to forget them, humanity answered.